What is going on, everybody? This is Let's Be Frank, episode 8 with your host, Frank Mattis, brought to you by the Old City Sports Network. And boy, do we have a lot to get into. The Philadelphia Phillies tie the series with the Mets, one apiece in an absolute classic. I will go over 5 bright spots with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I will discuss what was madness in college football this weekend. But first, let's talk about those fightings. I mean, holy cow, was that a thrilling game yesterday. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, at Frankie the Bull. But I kind of went on a rant on Friday a bit about my disappointment with Phillies fans in the fact that they wanted to play the Brewers instead of the Mets. And yesterday was a perfect example of what makes playoff baseball great. And that's when you have a thrilling game between two fierce rivals to tie it up. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, I get it. Like, the Mets were coming in. They kind of reminded us of the Phillies in 2022, where they were red hot and they had nothing to lose, where the Phillies have all the expectations in the world, and it's a bit of World Series or bust mentality. But you got to get up for the Mets, dude. You got to get up for a series like that because they're one of your most hated rivals. And you know, it's weird because you would think that the Braves are our biggest rival because they've been a thorn in our side in terms of winning the NL East so many times. We've played them in the postseason several times. And prior to this series, we've never played the Mets in the postseason, which blew my mind. But for whatever reason, the Mets are our most hated rival according to the fans. I mean, and I get it to a degree because Mets fans are insufferable. But in terms of consequential baseball, in terms of, you know, playing in the postseason and who has been a bigger thorn in our side, it's been the Braves. But for whatever reason, the Mets are our biggest rival in a lot of ways. And I couldn't have been more excited for the Mets series. I want all the smoke. I want to go up against our biggest rival. And obviously game 1 didn't go well. The bats got cold. You know, Turner, Stott, and Castellanos specifically just did not play well. And, you know, and I said throughout the entire game, obviously Schwarber led things off and opened up the floodgates with the leadoff home run. And you're, you know, this is, you know, welcome to Red October. And this is, you know, going to be a blowout for the Phillies. And they got complacent with the bats. And I said all game, they need more runs. They need more runs. They need more runs. They cannot get complacent. They cannot rest on their laurels of, you know, starting off strong and the fans going crazy. You got to pounce on your rival. And, you know, when they take out Wheeler, who, you know, and I'll get into that later, the chickens came home to roost and we paid the price, and the Phillies lose a devastating game 1. But game 2 was one for the ages, where the Phillies tie up the series. And I want to talk about Nick Castellanos, because I think you can make an argument that his run with the Phillies in the last 3 years has been a bit of a disappointment. The numbers aren't the best. He, you know, started off really poorly this year. He had a nice bounce back towards the later part of the season. So, you know, there was some optimism going into the postseason with him. But the 2 years prior, you know, he started off strong last year and kind of fell off a little bit. And then in particularly the postseason, he just hasn't really shown up late in the playoffs. You know, he had some moments early on, you know, in the postseason last year, but he was nowhere to be found in the Diamondback series. And when you look at all the other Phillies, right? Obviously, Bryce Harper has been a home run, literally, winning an MVP, sending us to the World Series. Kyle Schwarber, you know, has been tremendous in the leadoff spot. You know, his first 2 years, he's had 40-plus home runs. Last year was a little weird with batting under 200, but, you know, he makes up for it in terms of walks and home runs. And then this year, he's been a much more balanced hitter, getting his average up and still hitting a lot of home runs. JT Realmuto, obviously, as a fielding catcher, is the best in all of baseball, but sometimes his bat can get cold. And, you know, but when his bat is on, good things happen with the Phillies. He obviously was the hero in game 1 of the World Series against the Astros. So people will remember that. Trey Turner obviously got off to a really slow start, and then that the standing ovation game sort of changed everything. His bat got a little cold last year in the postseason, but this year he's proven that he's worth every penny. So, in terms of all the high-profile guys we brought in here, Nick Castellanos has been the biggest disappointment. I mean, let's just be honest. I like Nick Castellanos, I like the swag that he brings. I like the dynamic with, his son. I think that's great. But, he's been a disappointment in the postseason. Let's just be honest. And fans got really restless with him yesterday, swinging, just swinging at pitches he has no business swinging. And the fans let him have it, and rightfully so. And I'm back and forth with my buddies in my group chat, guys I knew for 20 years. And, we're talking about Nick Castellanos being a disappointment as a Philly. My one buddy went to the game, and my other buddy was like, you should grab a bat and go up and try to hit because our team can't do it. And he's like, well, I'll do a better job than Castellanos. That's for sure. And then he ties the game up, and you're thinking, holy crap, man. I mean, that's why I love Philadelphia sports, is because just like that, man, you go from being a disappointment and being a scapegoat and everybody and their mother going after you, whether it's in the stadium, whether it's social media, whether it's yelling at their TV. I mean, Nick Castellanos was public enemy number one in a lot of ways. And then he goes out and has the game of his life. And then he obviously has the walk-off hit to get us tied up with the Mets. And good for him, man. Good for him. I was in a lot of ways saying his last rites, and then he goes out and has the game of his life and turns it all around. And, yes, this is a city that will absolutely be up your ass when you're not playing well. But when you do things like what Nick Castellanos did yesterday, you're immortalized in a lot of ways. Now, obviously, we still have a lot left, a lot of baseball left in the series. And we still have 2 series left till the ultimate goal of winning a World Series. But that is a type of win, especially given the fact that Nick Castellanos was the catalyst of that will get you places. When you win a gritty game like that against one of your most fierce rivals, where nothing was going right and everybody's coming at your throat, and you do that, and you also have Harper, who is the showman that he is, not only was spectacular with his bat, but also his glove. That needs to be noted because we always praise Harper for his bat. Let's not kid ourselves. He was fantastic at first base. And Trey Turner and Bryson Stott stepped up. Obviously, Bryson Stott got the lead going into the 9th, and he stepped up in a big way as well. I really like the aggressive base running from the Phillies. They clearly took advantage of the alignment of the Mets, and I like that a lot. You got to take advantage whenever you can. You got to be opportunistic when you can, and boy, did they ever in terms of base running. I really like the decision of sitting Bohm. He clearly was struggling, and you need to send a message to your ball club that, hey, as good as Bohm is, we can't have that. And, all hands are on deck, and, kudos to Topper for doing that. But speaking of Topper, I feel really good about the series. I think given everything that Castellanos has been through and being the star that he was yesterday, and seeing guys like Turner and Stott and Harper all step up and hit, you feel good about the series going forward, and with Nola being on the mound, I don't really have any worries like I once did. I know a lot of people are hard on Nola, but I think Nola's come a long way and is one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. So, I feel good going forward, but there are some things that I am concerned about, and this leads me to Topper. I understand Zach Wheeler pitched 100-plus pitches in Game 1. and he was spectacular. And that game was definitely more of an indictment on our bats than it was our pitching, even more so our bullpen, which completely fell apart, obviously, when Wheeler went out. But, dude, when your ace is on fire and they can't do a damn thing, you got to send him out to the 8th inning and play it by ear. I'm sorry. You can't pull your ace when he's doing that. And I know a lot of people will disagree with that, and I get it. Like, 100-plus pitches is a lot. That game was more of an indictment on your bats. But if you're on, you're on, and all bets are off in the postseason, and you got to let guys cook. And I would have put him out there in the 8th inning and let him do his thing. And if things get dicey, yank him. That would have been my approach. But that was something that I did not approve of. I get, that people might have disagreements with that. And listen, if this was a one-off, it is what it is. But it's not. And this is my big problem with Topper. We have a track record now of Topper pulling guys too early. He pulled Wheeler early in the World Series. And then yesterday when, you're getting bend, don't break approach from Christopher Sanchez, who is an all-star and has stepped up in a huge way this year, why in the world are you taking him out after 5 innings? He's won 11 games this year. He made an all-star appearance. Why are you taking him out? Why? Why are you taking him out? He was, other than the 1 inning where he gave up 2 runs. Why are you taking him out? You're trying to tell me Christopher Sanchez cannot go 6 innings, 6+ innings? Why are you taking him out? And then Ruiz proceeds to give up a run. And then the Mets, go up 3-0. And then Estevez, who was spectacular in the 8th inning, who was brought here to be our closer, who only pitched 8 pitches, in and out, perfect. You got exactly what you needed from him. And then Stott, has the RBI, and then we're up, 6-4. The whole point of a closer, the whole point of Estevez is to let him close games. Why are you bringing in Strom? Why? That is the type of approach that will lose us games, that will cost us series going forward. And I've praised Topper all year long. I have been impressed with his decision-making. I don't really have a whole lot of complaints other than force-feeding Walker, which, by the way, just a conspiracy theory, I think part of Walker's problems is not having him pitch last year in the postseason. And I think that screwed him up mentally in addition to the injury. And then Topper knew that and overcompensated for that by trying to give him every opportunity, and it cost us. And other than that, though, I've been impressed with Topper. Why are you pulling Christopher Sanchez after he pitched 5 really good innings, other than the 1? 4, really. He still had a lot left in the tank. 86 pitches is not that crazy. I'm sorry. People may disagree with that, but you got to let guys cook. He was fine yesterday. And he's another guy that we have a track record of in terms of Topper pulling too early in a game. Remember last year when Sanchez started in the NLCS against the Diamondbacks, he had an error early on in the game, but he started to settle in and he looked, like he was starting to come into his own and started to look comfortable in there. And then Topper takes him out and the game breaks open. So we have a track record now of Topper pulling guys too early. And the Estevez thing just makes absolutely no sense. You brought a guy in to be your closer. Let him close games. That was a closing opportunity, a save opportunity. Why are you taking Estevez out? Do you think Charlie Manuel would take out Brad Lidge after he had a, in and out inning in the 8th? Like, what are we doing here? What is the logic behind that? But thank God we won. And kudos to Nick Castellanos, who, I mean, he went from disappointment to a hero. And to see him embraced with his son, it's beautiful. That is what makes being a Philly athlete so special. You can go from being a scapegoat, public enemy number one, to a hero. And you saved the series. Nick Castellanos saved the series for the Philadelphia Phillies. And when you factor in everything that was at stake, and you factor in the fact that he was booed and he's saying these friggin' people, and to see him do what he did is why I love being a Philadelphia sports fan. I was reading his last rites. I was talking to my friends about this guy's a disappointment. And then he goes out and he does that. I salute you, sir. If I'm going to be wrong, I want to be wrong like that. I have no problem being wrong at the expense of my team doing good, at the expense of players that I've been critical of proving me wrong. I have no problem saying I was wrong. And that is a beautiful feeling, to see a guy who, had not delivered in the postseason, especially, essentially make this an entirely different scenario for the Phillies and a different vibe. And you got to imagine that this team has all the momentum in the world right now to win this series. And good for him, man. Good for him. Obviously, the Phillies will play on Tuesday with Nola on the mound, and I feel very confident. And you got to think the guys in the clubhouse, seeing Castellanos and everything that he's been through, are going to rally behind that. You better friggin' believe it, baby. We are so back, man. All the doubts that we had from game one, and even prior to the postseason, the rest, going up against a very gritty rival, when you win a must-win game like that, when everything in the world is crashing down and you're down 0-3, and you see Harper being the showman like he is, and you see Nick Castellanos go yard and play the game of his life. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. That is why I love Red October. That is why I love playoff baseball. And that is why I want the Mets. I want all the smoke, and I want to take their soul these next two games. Phillies in 4. You better believe it. So let's talk about the Eagles. So obviously there's a lot of negativity around the Eagles. It's funny. My one buddy, Nick, texted me yesterday. He was like, so the Phillies win and the Eagles didn't lose, and it's a great Sunday. So I feel a lot of people have that same sentiment. But I want to talk about 5 bright spots for the Eagles. And here are 5 guys that have been a silver lining to a disappointing season so far. Again, it's early and a lot can change. But here are some of the silver lining bright spots. Number 1, obviously, Saquon Barkley. He's been spectacular. He's been everything and then some. You take away the drop pass. You're talking about an all-pro running back, a guy that has been incredible. He's been really good. And I think when you get, Devontae and AJ back to go along with the running game and hopefully a new approach with the bye, I think he's going to be a closer in a lot of these games. So I have him 1. Number 2, I have Cam Jurgens, who, had a shaky first game, but has really settled in that spot. And obviously he's no Jason Kelce. I don't think a lot of guys are. Jason Kelce's at worst a top 5 center of all time. To me, he's in the top 3. I think Mike Webster and his longevity for not just, 1 decade, but multiple, gives him that, that good status at center. But he hasn't missed a beat, and the center position hasn't missed a beat, and he's really coming into his own. And he was, a bright spot in a very terrible outing by the Eagles against the Buccaneers. He's one of the few guys that actually showed up and played and wanted to get off the bus and try to help his team, unlike everybody else for the most part in that game. So he's really settled in. The rate he's going, I see him making a Pro Bowl team, possibly an All-Pro. Obviously, you got Creed Humphrey and Frank Ragnow, who are really good centers, but he's trending into the right direction. Number 3, I got Dallas Goedert. I really liked seeing him, stretch the field. He came up huge in the Saints game, and it's a real eye opener seeing a guy like him stretch the field. And when he's factored into the game plan, and you stretch him out as opposed to running tight end screens with Devontae Smith blocking in front of you, I think that's going to pay dividends going into the future. Number 4, I have Brandon Graham. I mean, going into the season, if you were to tell me that Brandon Graham was going to be our best pass rusher so far, I would have thought you were nuts. Seeing his play drop off last year, but he's an ageless wonder, man. And he when he's done, he's going to be truly missed. And he's a guy that's been through the ringer over the last over the last decade or so. A lot of people, including myself, I'm a Michigan fan, so I was happy to get a Michigan man on the Eagles. But even I knew, when he was at Michigan, he was a 3-4 outside backer as opposed to a 4-3 defensive end. And I didn't think it was a fit, and it wasn't a fit early on, but he kept chucking along and got better and better and better. And then he's obviously synonymous with the Eagles' Super Bowl win over the Patriots in Super Bowl 52. To me, that's the play of the game. Obviously, the Philly special was incredible, but that was the most consequential play that sealed the deal. So he's still at it, which is incredible. And then lastly, I have Kenyon Mitchell. And listen, Kenyon Mitchell's been up and down, but he's a rookie. And I think that what he's done this year is going to be very valuable for him going forward. Obviously, I've been very critical of Slay. Avonte Maddox, obviously he's a slot guy, not an outside guy. He's struggled. Cooper DeJean, they're starting to break in more and more. You have Keely Ringo, who, is whatever. But, Kenyon Mitchell, has given up some plays, but he's also made some plays. And he's a guy that, he wants to smoke. You can tell by, how he jaws it up with guys on the field. And I think he's only going to get better and better. So those are 5 bright spots. Before I talk about college football, I want to let you know about our sponsor, Warlord Beard Oil. If you go to www.warlordbeardoil.com and use the promo code Old Sports, you get 15% off site-wide. And if you spend $65 or more, you get free shipping. So again, go to www.warlordbeardoil, use that promo code Old Sports for 15% off site-wide. And if you spend $65 or more, you will get free shipping, and let them know that I sent you. So let's talk about college football. Obviously, if you've been watching the pod, I'm a Michigan fan. So Saturday was not a good day for me. The Phillies lose in devastating fashion. Michigan loses on the road against an inferior team. And, they weren't the only one, though. They weren't the only ranked team to lose. Obviously, Alabama goes down to Vanderbilt in a crazy game. Number 4, Tennessee, who a lot of people, like myself, felt that they would be a sleeper national champion, potentially. They go down to Arkansas. Missouri gets shellacked by Texas A&M. Michigan obviously loses to Washington in the national championship rematch. And then USC loses to Minnesota. Yeah, what a crazy week in college football. Good thing that the college football playoff has expanded. So, that you can afford to lose games like that. But, it was a crazy week seeing 4 of the top 10 teams lose. And, in particular, Michigan, man, it's going to be a long season. And me personally, I knew there would be a drop-off given all the guys that, left Michigan last year. And I said all of last year it was natty or bust because I knew the transition was going to come. And, I felt that they would, like I said, I predicted them to lose to Texas. I didn't, after seeing that first game, there was no indication that I felt like Michigan could steal that. They obviously, got beat pretty handily in that game. And then, you watch the USC game and you see them beat USC in a classic game, but then you watch them struggle in the second half against Minnesota and almost blow that game. And, the chickens came home to roost in Seattle this Saturday. And, I'm glad that they decided to go with Tuttle as their quarterback. He obviously played much better than Alex Orji and gave them a much-needed boost. But this offense is a problem. And, I don't, Tuttle is better, but is he the answer? I don't know. You obviously have Jaden Davis, who is a freshman, true freshman. I don't know how ready he is. But when you have teams like Illinois, who, are solid, obviously, they kind of got exposed a bit against Penn State, but they're still a solid team. Indiana is a solid team. Oregon is starting to come into their own. And then obviously Ohio State is a juggernaut. And I just, Washington, that game was going to tell me, okay, what do we have going forward, for Michigan? And losing that game, makes me lose hope in the season. It's going to be a long season, and I do not see this team making a college football playoff. And honestly, I don't know if this team's going to be ranked by the time the playoff comes around, and I knew it was going to be a transition year. You obviously lost a lot of players. You lost Jim Harbaugh. But, when you're a guy in Sharon Moore and you want to promote, the process, the pursuit, and the standard, and he has been a catalyst to a lot of Michigan's recruiting under Jim Harbaugh. And he started to come into his own later in the recruiting process and started to really gain some ground. But that wasn't it on Saturday. That was not the standard at all. And I'm telling you this right now, as a Michigan fan, people are saying, well, Frank, you just won a national title. Like, relax a bit. I'm not going back to the Rich Rod era. I'm not going back to the Brady Hoke era. There is a standard. And you want to preach standard, right? There is a standard at Michigan. There is a reason why we are the winningest program in history. There is a reason why we have 12 national championships. It's because there is a standard. There is a reason why Michigan is on the Mount Rushmore of college football programs. And I expect, even though there's going to be a period, it's going to be bumpy, I still expect to win games. I still expect to be a national championship contender every single year. We are not a one-and-done program, and I will not accept that as a Michigan fan. And Michigan fans will not accept that. And I like Sharon Moore, and I will give him every chance imaginable. But Saturday was unacceptable. And our secondary just got lit up like a Christmas tree, playing so far off the ball. I thought I was watching Vic Fangio's defense. Obviously, Mason Graham and Josiah Stewart played well in that game, but it clearly wasn't enough. The secondary did not answer the bell. They got absolutely torched. And, it's going to be a long season for Michigan. And I'm telling you this right now, I am not going back to the Rich Rod era, and I'm not going back to the Brady Hoke era. If you're going to promote the process, the pursuit, and the standard, you don't get a mulligan this year. I'm sorry, you don't get a mulligan this year. And Michigan has proven, because this team isn't usually the highest in terms of like the highest ranked teams in recruiting. They have done more with less. So you've proven that you can do more with less. Did anybody expect after that debacle in 2020 during the COVID year that Michigan was going to go to the playoff and beat Ohio State and win a Big Ten championship? No, because they've done more with less. They have a track record of doing more with less. Sharon Moore specifically, ascending from O-line coach, offensive coordinator, now the head coach, has done more with less. You have to do more than what you did on Saturday night. Saturday night is unacceptable. And it looks like we're in for a long season. So I do not want to see this team rest on their laurels after last year and be like, oh, we won a national championship and, all's forgiven if we have a down year. No, I'm not going back to the garbage era that was Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, minus the 1 year we won a Sugar Bowl under Brady Hoke. I'm not doing that. We're as Michigan fans, we are not doing that. So, hopefully Tuttle, going forward can add some stability with the quarterback position, and more reps will get him better and expand our offense. But it looks like we're in for a long season. And despite the turnover, it's just not acceptable. And I hope Sharon Moore gets the message. And I like Sharon Moore. I'm not saying fire Sharon Moore. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're going to promote the process, the pursue, and the standard, and you have a track record of doing more with less, Saturday cannot ever happen again. If you want to do big things and you want to be that standard in college football, because Saturday was not it. So that's that. Obviously the Phillies tying the series yesterday, has got me really fired up and really excited, and I feel good about our chances going forward. The Eagles, we'll see. I think they have a very favorable matchup against the Browns. Even though the Browns have a good defense, I still think our offense, if healthy, can take them to the woodshed. Deshaun Watson, like I've said before, I mean, the guy is just a complete shell of himself, and they better win that game. They absolutely better win that game, and I hope that we get to see a new Eagles team. And then obviously the Sixers play tonight, preseason. The Flyers are around the corner, and then with Red October, man, it's a great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. So that will be it today. I feel good about the Phillies going forward, and Phillies in 4, baby. Phillies in 4. Take care, and I will see you later.